Hey, if you need to, you can take this. That's the whole thing if you need it. It's like drinking through a fire hose, isn't it? Hey, can you help him find his page? Mine just stays up, so I kind of. One more? All right, thank you, sir. Yeah. On that one. Yeah, we'll double check that one, make sure we get it right. That's why I brought my note, just in case. Yeah, they had,
In between that property down there, see all
pushing to approve because we had. Thank goodness we got a hard copy here then. He can have.
Gonna have to use it.
One. I'm good, I think, so.
Have to use that catalog.
at this day and time.
Have to go old school. This is the way we used to have to always do it, so. Took us a while to get used to doing it like this.
I'll check it.
Well, you are? Oh, well then maybe this was once for you.
Start, Mac, I'm ready. Just go ahead and start me and you'll do it.
You know when he gets on. Well, I mean, listen, if I need to unslide my stuff, something, so. You gonna use this? Oh, you got it? Well, I'll give this to her then.
I'll restart this one now. I'll get this out.
I think it's the county attorney. Right. Tell John we're having these meetings at the same place we used to.
He'd be calling in from Aruba or somewhere over there.
It might be.
Is that where he's liable to be? Can't imagine him being in the United
With
States.
what did she say, with five members, we have to have four for a positive? It's not a 3-2 then, is it? Okay, Karen, let me double check something. You said that to have a quorum on this board, we're gonna need a four. Okay, let's make sure for we. We have a forum. So 3-2? Okay. Okay. Did Sydney have her kid? What's she have? Is that why she's not here? He on now? He is in Aruba. Okay, all right, good. So we're ready. All right, we're going to start the meeting. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance and opening prayer. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lord, we thank you so much for this great nation we live in and for the opportunities to govern ourselves at these local levels like we are, and we just ask that you give us wisdom in these decisions for the people of Walton County. Christ, let me pray, amen. All right, Mac, you up? Oh, yeah, we do want to do the minutes. Everybody read the minutes? Aaron, I think we got one change we need to make in there, and that's on the SAP. Is it the SAP? And you're going to make those and get them back to us. So we need a motion to approve with the changes.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Mac?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Matt Carpenter for the Planning Department, CARPENTER. We've got 9 cases on tonight's agenda. The first 5 are legislative in nature. We do have one request to continue, if you'd like to go ahead and take that now, in case there's anyone here that was waiting for that particular item.
Okay, let's do that.
That is item number 5 on the agenda, the Henderson Large-Scale Amendment. We are going to ask to continue that until the next Planning Commission, which will be August 13 at 4 p.m. in this location. We've been working with the Air Force related to the military influence areas related to Eglin and some limitations through a developer agreement on the kinds of uses that could be implemented on this site if the land use change were approved. They're a little concerned about putting people in the way of critical approach zones and that kind of thing. And as we are too, and there's some uses that would be allowed in this land use category that the applicant doesn't intend to take advantage of. So it's an amicable workout, but it's just not ready yet. So we'll bring that to you next month.
You need a motion on that?
Yes, sir. To continue to August 13th at 4 p.m. in this location.
All right, we got a motion?
Motion continue.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thanks, sir. The first item to hear tonight is item number 2. It's a legislative item. It's the Boyles right-of-way abandonment. It's been reviewed by Tim Brown of our staff, and I'll ask Tim to briefly introduce it for you.
Good afternoon, Tim Brown with the Planning Department. This is a petition for abandonment application submitted by Mark Davis requesting the abandonment of the eastern 30 feet of the 60-foot 22nd Street right-of-way, which is on 0.19 acres with the future land use of conservation residential and the zoning of conservation residential 1 to 2.5. It's at the very end of 22nd Street in Santa Rosa Beach. There's one letter of support in your packet and 3 letters of opposition. I'd like to enter the staff report into the record, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Okay, you can enter. Y'all got any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Is the, okay, yeah.
My name is Mark Davis. I'm here on behalf of Nathan Bulls, who's in the audience tonight. It's a simple request for an abandonment of a 30 foot of a 60-foot easement on 22nd Street in the old Santa Rosa Plantation. Mr. Bulls is here to testify as to the reasons he's seeking the abandonment. We would accept the staff recommendations for conditions that have been attached or that were made in the staff report. We have no issues with those particular conditions.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And first of all, thanks for your service. I know this is a volunteer position, and it usually gives you nothing but grief, so we appreciate your willingness to serve. This piece of property my wife and I have owned for a couple of years over here in Walton County. Had the opportunity to acquire it from Miss Audrey Farish, who had lived on that property for about 40 years. The bulk of the property was actually on an original abandonment from the county of another right-of-way. And this was developed back in the days where you could do things like dig a hole, make a pond, and use that to fill in the marsh and build a house. And very frankly, that's what happened here back in the 70s. The way the property was aligned at the time, it basically shifted everything over and put it right on top of what is adjacent to that unopened 22nd Street right-of-way. So if you're in the backyard behind the property, you are effectively, the backyard has been for 40 years, what is this portion of unopened county right-of-way. The property is not accessible because of wetlands that's on the property, and so it would provide, in our opinion, very limited, public use or benefit, in addition to having been, maintained over the last 40 years by the property owner. For us, important, the small pond that I mentioned, the dam for that pond is actually on this piece of right-of-way that we're requesting that be vacated, and so there's obviously a maintenance liability responsibility issue there. We would like to resolve that. Where the driveway, because we're beyond the end of the developed portion of 22nd Street, actually where the driveway exits out is actually, again, on this unopened portion of right-of-way. And then, again, in that backyard area, this is adjacent to Hogtown Bayou. And when we purchased the property, there was some fencing, some dilapidated fencing that we took down. We have young children, and we, at some point may want to consider putting that back up just from a safety standpoint, but we're hesitant to do that on what is, technically that unopened portion of right-of-way. We wanted to be very clear, we have no development intentions for this property. This is single-family residential use. It will continue to be single-family residential use, and we are certainly amenable to easements or restrictions as this board deems appropriate to recommend. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say one last thing. The 3 letters in opposition mentioned a code complaint that has been resolved. That code complaint is over. It's been resolved in its favor.
Does that mean there's no opposition at this point?
They may still oppose it on other grounds, but I know that was the gist of the opposition in those letters.
Okay, so they haven't brought any other issues up?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Thank you. All right, we got anybody in the audience who would like to speak on this? We didn't have anybody sign up to, so. Yes, ma'am, if you'll come up to the microphone and tell us who you are.
I am Rita Inselman, and I live on
Can you
20.
spell your last name for her?
INSELMANN.
Thank you.
As a homeowner, a block from where he's talking about, I live on 21st Street, and if you allow him to do that, every time it floods the bay, it's going to be up there in our yard. So I'm opposed to it.
Well, I don't think he's changing anything, so if it's
I know
been,
he's closing it off where the water can't go down where it always does when it rains and floods over there. And if he does close it off, then the water, is going to seek the path of less resistance.
I don't think he can do that without a DEP permit, but he didn't mention that either, so we can bring him back up here and have him answer if he's intending to close any.
Now, the alleys over there have never been open, so we got one behind our house too, but we leave it alone. And what he's proposing, I'm pretty sure, is closing that alleyway off.
He's not proposing that here. This is only for an abandonment. We're not proposing, or he is not proposing any type of development or any kind of work being done on the property.
So if you approve what he wants, it's not going to close that.
No, he's not going to do it. He would have to get permits beyond this board
Well,
for all
that's
that.
not a problem in Walton County.
Well, okay.
Thank you for
Thank you.
listening to me.
Has anybody else got anything to say on this? Okay, we'll close public comments. Where? I'm sorry, on the Zoom? Oh, I can't see that, but yeah, oh, Gary Poole. Okay, Gary, go ahead.
Campground next door, I've got somebody camping next to me. That's not what this property should be used for. And so I'm opposed to anything that might increase the ability to use it for campground.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? We got anybody on Zoom? Okay, we'll close public comments. Mark, would y'all like to address these issues?
The campground issue was the issue that was associated with the code complaints. And again, those have been resolved in favor of Mr. Bulls. That's completely done. There's no campground.
Okay. And what about the closing off of any? I assume she means some type of waterway in there.
No, there's no, Mr. Bulls is not proposing and is representing to the board that he's not proposing any improvements at this point in that right of way.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, board. What are your wishes?
What could this property be used for? Is there anything it could be used for with it is?
To be honest with you, probably not. I mean, it's wet. It's fairly wet. The only thing it maybe could be used for, and that's one of the reasons we have no oppositions for easements or anything the county might want to do inside that property, is it could possibly be used for some stormwater improvement at some very far future date, or maybe some utility access. But again, we don't have any problem with that, even after the abandonment.
I think the county standpoint has been is if it can be used at any future time for these things, then they usually say, Public Works usually says not abandon it. And that's the reason they say that.
Yeah, Public Works, I've never recommends abandonments because of that very, very issue. But if Public Works, and you probably know what this property is, if they ever come back and start wanting to pave and put stormwater or other improvements in this area, we're saying we don't have any issue with reserving an easement for that purpose. And again, the likelihood of that anytime future is very, very low.
Well, the access going down through there, It's the uplands are on the north end, and to get there, you've got to go through wetlands
That's
to
correct.
get there. So the only accessible route to any uplands would be through Mr. Boyle's property.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It's unopened now, and it would be very difficult and costly to open it.
So what are the implications of your statement there, Lee? I'm not sure I am quite clear on what you were implying by,
Well, you've got wetlands
right?
in the majority of this right-of-way, so somebody'd have to get permits in order to actually get to the bay
Right,
through the wetlands.
right.
And I just don't see that they would be, I don't know what advantage it would be to cross those wetlands in there.
And remember, the house and the backyard are literally, because of the way this property was actually created, or right up on the edge of that boundary. So if you get a permit to go down this particular piece of property to the bay, you're going to end up going through the middle of his property. That's just the way the contours of the bay, of this property work.
Well, I believe that Mr. Boyle said that there was a driveway from the house into this easement.
It's actually at the very north end of the easement, yes, ma'am. Does it even touch the easement? I'm not even sure it touches the easement.
Right, I remember looking at it,
Yeah.
but
May I?
Go, you sure?
Yep. So the 22nd Street was traditionally undeveloped. I think about 10 years ago, a developer actually developed 22nd Street and put a cul-de-sac in at the end of the road. And so that cul-de-sac provides what would be the northernmost access currently. And so our driveway starts at the very north end of that cul-de-sac. And so it just kind of, it's odd because of the skew of the boundary lines, but you have to go across this currently unmaintained portion of the right-of-way in order for us to actually, our driveway to connect to the cul-de-sac, if that makes
so
sense.
those RVs that were going in there and the campers that were going in through this easement that is presently county property to get in there?
Well, just, no, ma'am, we're just going across it's our driveway. It's the driveway to the property. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. And again, that's a resolved issue as we understand it.
Well, Mr. Poole said that there was still a camper or RV there, so how has that been resolved?
So there was a code complaint filed, and as I understand it, the code department has investigated and closed that complaint satisfactorily. Yes, ma'am. And I don't want to speak for Mr. Poole, he may still be on the line. His underlying concern was with the vacation rentals generally, which is a specifically allowed use within this zoning designation. And so he has some consternation with the existence of vacation rentals, certainly understandable. It's just simply a matter of right within that zoning designation. We use this property primarily for us. We live up in Crestview, come down on the weekends, and in the week when we can sneak away. So.
Can we see if he is on the line, still on the line to?
Is Mr. Poole still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Did you have a question? Bob?
Did you hear that statement that was just made? Do you have any comment on that?
I did hear the statement. I also heard that the code enforcement has cleared it or whatever. I would like to hear the code enforcement comments on authorizing wildfires during times when the wildfires are actually banned by the Florida Wildlife Department or the services that monitors that. There's some other things there that code enforcement, it may be legal, but it's not what you guys sitting there at that table would want next to your house. So I'm opposed to it because anything I see, from my standpoint, to make anything easier can be used to expand the campground. Whether that's said today or not, that's what it could lead to.
Would you like to respond to that, Mr. Poole?
Yes, sir, if I may. So there's no campground. We have used the property as a vacation rental when we're not there, and we have allowed folks who park a single RV on the driveway to use the property in the past, and that's what Mr. Poole is referring to. We're, again, more than happy. We've sent a letter over to code enforcement. We have had positive conversations with them. We're more than happy to deal with any of those issues. If Mr. Poole would like to file additional code complaints, we'll be happy to deal with those. I think he was referencing we own a fire pit that's fully enclosed, the kind you can buy at Lowe's that has the top over it, and I think that was causing some consternation that we have a fire pit on the property. I think as many folks in Walton County do. But those issues just completely separate and unrelated to the issue at hand here, which is the request for the vacation of the right-of-way to resolve some of these outstanding boundary line issues. And so we would just offer, we're more than willing to work through any of those concerns in the appropriate venue. And just, my discomfort is in those issues trying to be used in this venue for what is an unrelated matter.
Because the RV is parked on your property.
Absolutely. It's on my driveway, in fact. Yes, sir.
Do you have anything to do with this abandonment issue?
Not at all. No, sir. No, sir. This area, and again, we're more than happy to allow easements, any restrictions that the county would request or recommend on this property, just as a show of good faith that this is not in an effort to any way to develop that property.
Okay. Didn't I read in here that this road was cut in back in like the early 1900s?
Part of the original settlement plan.
Yeah, like 1905 or something?
Or Walton County was a county. It was originally recorded in
Yeah.
Holmes County? Washington County, excuse me.
So it's been there for a while, and Public Works hasn't needed it for anything. And it's, like I said, it's got a lot of wetlands in it, so.
Thank you.
All right, board. Any more questions? Okay, Mr. Poole, what's your question?
My question is this, are they denying that this is a campground?
No, that's not really an issue in this. This has to do with an abandonment. It doesn't have to do with the campground. I think that's a code enforcement issue that's going, or was taking place. I think that's been satisfied.
Okay, just for the record, this is a campground. I'm looking at a camper now. That came in today. There was a guy here previous to that. There's been multiple campers here. There's been tents here. It is a campground. And that is my concern, that any abandonment of any property gives the ability to expand this into an easier campground. There's a fire pit here. It is enclosed sitting right now. But when somebody piles some logs on it or gets some limbs on it, it becomes uncovered. And this was after the fire that was at, over here with the Musset Bayou fire. Is that what it was? It burned about 30 homes. 2 nights after that, there was a fire blazing in that fire pit, and it was uncovered.
I think that's an issue that would come up
Yeah.
with code enforcement. Something. This has to do with an abandonment, so it's not. This is not the place to address that.
I don't disagree technically that is correct, but it all goes together.
Well, not for us, it doesn't. That would be a separate issue that would come before code enforcement.
That's easy for you to say. I understand that, but it's not a separate issue.
Like I said, it is for us, and we have to go by the parameters that are set for us for this board.
I understand that. I understand that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Poole.
Thank you.
All right, we'll close any other comments except for the board. Y'all got a motion or
I'll make a motion to approve.
approve? And a second? We got any other questions? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 How about raising your hands, all the ayes? We got 3 up here, and John, did you?
I'm
vote?
an aye.
Okay, so it's 4-2. All right, we'll move on to the next issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. We'll move to item number 3 on our agenda. This is the Great Southern Yacht Small Scale Amendment. This is request approved by ordinance. Bob Baronti has reviewed it, and I'll ask Bob to briefly introduce it for us.
Thanks, Mac. My name is Bob Baronti, B-A-R-O-N-T-I. As Mac said, this is the Great Southern Yacht Small Scale Amendment. The property owner is Great Southern Yacht Company, LLC. The current future land use is mixed use, and the current zoning district is coastal center. The proposed future land use is industrial and extractive uses, and the proposed zoning is light industrial. The Planning Commission recommended approval. It meets the comprehensive plan. There's no outstanding comments. I don't see the agent. Is there any questions for me?
Y'all got any questions?
I think that was the TRC recommended approval, not the planning commission.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
We hadn't done that.
TRC.
Any questions? Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here?
Can I enter the staff report into record?
Yes, you can.
I don't, okay, Mr. Barnhill's not here, but the applicant's here.
Okay.
Evening. John Green with the Barnhill Civil. Will concur with the change of land use from mixed use to light industrial. It's an industrial area back in Miramar Beach and Geronimo. So we'll concur with Veroni's recommendation in TRC. Any questions for me?
Anybody got any questions? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
CREN.
All right, we're going to open up to public comments. We had a John Green that wanted to speak on this. Oh, is that you? Okay. Well, then we don't have any more. How about anybody in the audience that would like to speak on it? Okay, well, we'll close public comments. Board, what are your wishes?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second.
Second.
We have a second. John Roberts. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Okay, Mac?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That moves us to item number 4, the David Miller large-scale amendment. This one has also been reviewed by Bob Baronti, and I'll ask Bob to introduce this one for us.
Okay. You're up.
Yes, Mr. Chair. As Max said, this is David Miller LSA. David Miller is the property owner and the applicant. Staff recommendation to TRC was approval. It is changing the future land use from general agricultural and the zoning district from general agricultural to future land use of industrial and extractive uses in the zoning to light industrial. Mr. Miller operates a gunite business from his old barn on the subject property. Mr. Miller stores sand in the barn and cement in the silos and transfers it in the trucks for mixing at construction locations away from his farm. Mr. Miller's business is not in compliance with the LDC as it's currently zoned. This use is not allowed use under the current future land use and zoning and would require the future land use change that he is recommending. So this is a remedy for a existing code complaint. Meets the comprehensive plan and the land development code. There's no outstanding questions, and I have not received any public comments. Can I enter the staff report in the record, please?
You may.
Do you have any questions before I turn it over to Mr. Miller for me?
Any questions?
So there is an outstanding code complaint?
Correct. And this would be the remedy to start fixing the code complaint
And if
issue.
I remember and what you said correlate, no one has brought forth comments from surrounding.
It's my understanding from Mr. Miller, and he will be able to tell you more. It's a very low-key operation.
And the Millers own all the property around it, mostly. Okay, thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Miller?
I'm David Miller, and I'm the one who received the complaint and from the code enforcement and all that. And so out where I live, there's not a lot of industrial land at all. There is some industrial uses out there that have not come under scrutiny like I have. So anyway, I thought it was probably time to do something different out there because city's growing, things are going on around here, and so I wanted to prepare a piece of land. Although for the foreseeable future, I'll be doing nothing but haying that piece of land around where that gunite company is working. So there won't be any changes to anything else out there in the foreseeable future. If there is changes, come back to you.
Don't you own a good bit of property around this?
Yeah, I own about 300 acres there. So this is northwest corner of it. So any questions?
How long has the business been in operation?
A couple of years. And they employ probably 6 people now. They've got it's a economic boom for the area in a way too. They employ some people and they all do business here. They bought homes here, and it's an ongoing operation. Apparently, they like it here. All right.
And this has been a working farm for a while, for a pretty long while, hasn't it?
The farm? Yes, my family's owned, my dad bought it in 1950, and I've owned it since the 60s and have raised cattle, hay, and grew some vegetables and things out there as well. But farming is not a good crop around here. It's hard to make a living farming here. So anyway, time I think to do something else, something a little different around there.
All right, anybody got any more questions?
If there was a code complaint, somebody had to complain about it, I'm assuming, and it's kind of odd that they wouldn't. Just curious as to what their complaint was.
They complained about dust, and they stopped the dust. So I guess that's...
From the vehicles going in and out, or what?
No, from loading cement. Anyway, I've asked them to make sure that they've got bags in place and keep the dust down. And so far, they've been complying with that.
Okay.
If it gets bad again, we'll make them put bags in or do whatever it takes, you know.
Anything else? Okay, thank you, sir. All right, we'll open up public comments. Anybody in the audience want to speak on this? We didn't have anybody sign up. Okay, seeing none. Matt?
Just a little bit of follow-up about the code case, Matt Carpenter for the Planning Department, CARP and TER. We looked at the code violation, and it truly is not in the correct land use category. but we did not feel like the actual operation was incompatible with the surrounding area, and a land use change to get them into the correct land use category so they can get the appropriate development order would be the appropriate remedy, and that's what we recommend.
Okay, thank you. All right, board, what are your wishes?
To approve.
We have a motion to approve. Second? We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's all of us. All right, motion's approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. This moves us to we've continued item number 5, so we're on item number 6. This would be the Fishcamp rezoning. Bob has reviewed this one also, and I'll ask him to introduce it.
Bob Baronti. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As Max said, this is the Fishcamp small-scale amendment. It is being applied for by Rodney Estes. He is the property owner. The future land use currently is rural residential and zoning is rural village. The proposed future land use and zoning will be industrial and extractive uses and light industrial. The intent is to complete the small-scale amendment to allow Mr. Estes to run his insulation company from his barn. Mr. Estes has received code violation for operating his company in a residential district. This use is not allowable use under the code zoning district and would require a future land use and zoning district change. The property has a single-family residence located on the property. Mr. Chair, there are multiple violations here, not just the installation. It is not truly a pole barn. It is a metal frame building completed without permit. Also, there's a wrecker service for vehicles that are inoperable there. That is also a violation, and there are signs. Lonnie from our code department can speak to more of the violations. All comments have been addressed. Turning this into a industrial, extractive uses and industrial use meets the comprehensive plan. There is public opposition on the record. As you remember, you allowed for some citizens to speak at last month's meeting that couldn't be here.
Yep.
That is on record. I believe there were 3. And then there's also today, we received a letter from Shane and Trudy Wickham. You've been provided these. I'd like to enter the staff report into record and have Lonnie, wherever Lonnie went, come and speak to you.
Okay. Thank you. You can enter that into the record.
Good afternoon. I just want to reiterate that everything on this property was done without any permits at all. The property, the last meeting, he did state he would take down the signs, which he did not do. I went by this afternoon, the signs are still up, and there's 10 to 12 junk cars on the vehicle, on the property. So I believe he said that they come, they're there for no more than 5 days, and then they leave, but they're constantly coming and going. So this business has continued to operate even in violation. So just wanted to let you know that, and I took a couple of pictures of the sign in case you wanted to see those.
What is the business?
There's an insulation business. When he says a pole barn, I'll pass these around.
Okay. That was built without permit?
Yes, sir. And if I'd answer any questions, if you had any questions for me.
Y'all got any questions for Lonnie Butler?
Yes, sir.
How long has this been going on, the complaints, and not resolving them?
I don't have the exact date off the top of my head, but it was scheduled to go before the Code Enforcement Board on the March board. However, that board was postponed due to the COVID.
Right.
And since then, he has applied for and was following the steps according to what he was required by the planning department. So therefore, we have not rescheduled it for the code board.
You got any more questions for Mr. Butler? Okay. Bob, you got some more?
Yes, Mr. Chair, before we turn it over to Mr. Estes, do you want to address or do you want? Okay, Mac will be in a minute, so I will turn it over to the applicant.
Okay. Is the applicant present? Are you going to speak?
Yeah, I can speak. Hi, Rodney Estes. I'm the landowner. My understanding was that I can continue to run my insulation business even though that I was in compliance with the city, as long as I was moving forward with everything that I was supposed to do. The building itself was it's not completed. There's no water, there's no sewer, there's no electric, there's nothing. It was just basically just a carport. And then what happened was I was storing my insulation under there and people kept coming in and stealing my stuff. So what I did was I just closed it in. People were stealing my stuff, so that's what I did. And then what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna apply for a building permit, but I can't do a building permit until this issue is all done. So, I've owned the property for like 4 years and I've run my insulation business out of there for 4 years now. I mean, with no problems whatsoever. There was? Okay. I mean, I'm not for sure. I mean, till this last, so that's all I got to say. I'll answer any of your questions.
You got any questions for him?
What's the tow truck business?
We tow for the highway patrol. If you get into an accident on 331 or 98, anywhere in Santa Rosa Beach, we just basically go and pick up your car and bring it back to the yard, and the towing yard or the insurance company comes and gets them. And they're all licensed. It's not like we don't buy junk cars and bring them in there. It's just a stop spot so we can pull the car off the highway and the insurance company can come pick them up. They're all licensed. I mean, that's it, So.
How long do the abandoned cars stay there? The ones in
We take them up to Ponce de Leon, and they go to a junkyard up there. But they're there no more than 5 days. So.
But the problem is it's constant. It constantly
No,
evolves.
I mean, it's not constant.
Times when cars aren't there?
Well, I'm sorry?
There are times when cars aren't there?
Well, I mean, there's always 1 or 2 cars there.
That's what I'm saying. It's a constant turnover, so there's always some cars out there.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. But, I've done my best to, private fence the whole front of the building to where nobody can see in. I've private fenced the right side of the building. I've put the building at an angle to where you can't see anything. I've put a black silk fence. I've spent a lot of money on my property to try to make it look really good. I just had the city come in and dig out all new culverts. I asphalted the front. I mean, I've really put a lot of money in this and to try and make it look a lot better. I mean, I've got a lot invested in this.
Any other questions?
You say 4 to 5 days the vehicle stays there on abandoned vehicles, but you have to advertise them and everything for over 30 days.
Oh, no, we don't. No, they take them up to Ponce de Leon. As soon as they're there no more than 5 days.
You have a partner or something on this? Is it a partnership or something? Because, I mean, I come from a background on a tow company.
Yeah.
So I know you get abandoned vehicles. I got a lot of abandoned vehicles when I had my own towing company. We couldn't do anything with them for 30 plus days until we put ads in the paper.
Yeah.
We had to stay on our premises due to the highway patrol and not allow us to take them to another place because they had to be.
Yeah, you're exactly 100%. We don't do that. We don't do that here. We do it all up there. The office and everything is up there. I don't even have an office there. It looks like an office, but it's just a shell. And the only reason, like I said, the only reason I closed it in was because I got tired of people stealing my stuff. And it's really bad around there. So,
You mentioned that you spent a lot of money on this
I have,
project out there.
I have.
Why didn't you ever seek permits, though?
Well, my understanding was, you know, and I had been up here before. My understanding was as long as I wasn't closing that in, I didn't need a permit, you know, to put up the pole barn itself. I did not need a permit. That was my understanding. I came up here and I sat with a county guy twice and asked him, and he told me, well, you don't need to have a permit as long as it's just a carport and you're not closing it in.
But it is closed in, right?
It is closed in, yes, ma'am. It is now.
And it's not really
Yeah.
a carport anymore, is it?
No, well, it's just, all I did was just sheet metal the sides of it. It's not like.
No, I mean, you're not using it for a carport, though.
No, sir. No. No, I use it to store my insulation. We're there in the morning and then we're gone all day. And we come back and we park the truck and we leave.
Okay.
We don't have companies, we don't have people coming in and out and buying stuff and all that.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Estes.
Okay.
All right. Did y'all need anything else, Mac, or you want to come up later?
I'll go ahead and speak now. This did come up at technical review. And one aspect of this is just not going to be acceptable in this location, and that's the towing business. And if Mr. Estes chooses not to remove the towing business, we're changing our recommendation to denial tonight.
Thank you. All right, we're going to open up public comments. I had Charlie Altman Sr.
Charlie Altman, CHARLEYAULTMAN. I live right in the area, and I could maybe renew Mr. Estes' memory on that deed to his property, because his deed is signed July the 15th of 19, not 4 years ago. So he's blowing a lot of smoke, in my opinion. And this lot was zoned rural village single family residence for a reason, because it's a bedroom community. And no one wants a junkyard or industrial or commercial, well, no, I won't say commercial, in the neighborhood. And there is noise at night with the records, because I own property. I think it's exactly 300 foot if you don't count the pavement. Matter of fact, I own all of this property at one time. And I gave that lot that he's speaking of to my daughter, and she sold it, and then the buyer sold it to him. But I'm totally opposed to the change of the zoning on this. I don't believe a person should come in and this is a precedent that I can do anything I want to and come in and get forgiveness later. That's not the way the law works. And I encourage y'all to deny his request. And I thank you kindly.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes, sir.
Based on what the planning department stated that.
Pardon, I can't hear too well.
Based on what the planning department was saying, that they would not recommend approval to the county commission when it went forward if there was the tow service on there. If the tow service was removed, would you be okay with the storage of the insulation on that property?
If that was all they were, not over one business, and I think the community could live with that. But for as the record service, and I have family that's in real estate, and I know you've been in real estate, and a home is no more worth than the neighborhood it's in, and I don't want to be in a junkyard.
I understand. That's why I asked you if you were okay with if they denied the tow service junkyard there
But
and allowed the storage of the insulation to stay. I just want to get that clear.
I have one little question. It says they want to change it industrial and extraction. Will you give me the definition of extraction?
That wouldn't be the case in this. Extraction has to do with removing materials like dirt and clay and sand, but
Why is it on the,
it's just the way that land use is. It's a land use that has that in it, but he wouldn't be allowed to do any of that.
you know, Mr. Perry, I'm not opposed, I'm not opposed to business. As a matter of fact, I encourage businesses. I love mom and pop businesses. I've been in business. You have, we all have. And, but I want to live in peace. That, like I say, that lot was zoned back in the 60s, 70s, back in the pioneer days here, and for a reason, because it's a bedroom community. And I know none of you would want somebody to come in and buy a lot and just do as they please. That's not right. That's not fair to the public.
I'll have Mr. Carpenter address that, what you're talking about on the land use that it is. He can explain it better than I can as far as why extraction is included in that. And I think they're going to have this thing set up where there's an agreement on what he can and can't do in there if it moves forward.
Yes, yes.
So that it would be limited to just the insulation storage. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. I'm just saying that it would be set up. Am I
Yes,
stating that correctly, Mac? Okay.
Okay. I thank y'all kindly for hearing me.
Sir, thank you. Charlie Altman, I assume this is Junior. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could address that.
Sure, go ahead, Matt.
The title of the future land use category that would be appropriate to allow for the light industrial zoning includes extractive use. It doesn't mean that extractive use could be done there. There would have to be a zoning change to allow that, and that would be an incompatible use in this particular area. But we have to use this particular future land use category if we're going to apply light industrial zoning to the parcel.
Well, even if this passes today with the limitations on it, he's still going to have to come back and get a development order on there to allow.
He's going to have to come back and get a development order, and then once that's approved, if that gets approved, he'll have to get a building permit. He'll have to have an engineer to certify that this building has been constructed in accordance with the building code. All of which will be at least 2 times the normal fees because he didn't get the permits before he did the work.
All right, thank you. Mr. Altman?
Yes. First of all, my name is Charlie Altman, CharleyAultman. I'm a junior. Most people know me as Billy, long story, okay? But I'm opposed to it. First of all, I spoke the last time here. There was someone that come in our neighborhood a few years back and done the same exact thing at Magnolia Bay down here from our house, right around the curve. Well, my son got hit with a record truck over there. So that's less than 200 foot from where he is right now. I heard the impact about a quarter mile away, and I thought a semi-truck had dropped a trailer. I run out there, and it was my son. Got hit by a record truck doing about 55 miles an hour right there. I got pictures, but I figured I would save you the pictures of him bleeding out on the truck. Okay, this is not the neighborhood for this to be into. These people were getting a call, looking down at the call, not paying attention, and hit my son turning. Okay, my son, thank God he's okay, had to have plastic surgery on his face to fix him. Okay, but not only that, let's just go back to what went on here. I worked 3 jobs basically my whole life. I'm almost 60 years old. I've worked hard. I built my house. I didn't have a contractor build my house. I built it. My dad helped me build it. I have a lot of sweat and blood on my property. I can show you my hands. We cleared the land with our hands. So we know what hard work is. Okay, we were showed no favor. I had to fight tooth and nail to get my house built. It cost me about $10,000 to get the first shovel of dirt turned because of just surveys and crap. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I built my house, and I didn't build it there and put all the sweat and equity into it to have somebody come next door and run it down. My house is a concrete block home. I poured it with 3,000 PSI concrete inside the walls. I got steel every 2 foot. I can hear the truck at night. I can't hear traffic on the road at 3280. And my house sits right off 3280. I built it like that, but yet I can still hear the beeping of that truck at night, all hours of the night. Just the other day, about a week ago, I got it on my phone. I mean, I can back up what I'm telling you. I pulled up the store right there at the little cafe, got out to eat me something. I looked over there, and the record truck is parked right there in the store parking lot at the dumpster, straight across from his driveway. And I'm thinking, I wonder what he's doing. He must be in here eating. No. I pulled out there, took pictures of it, and I seen a guy run across the street, got that record truck, spun it around, and went back in that driveway, and I got it on a video. As soon as that truck hit, their car went by, and boom, just like that. And I thought, oh my God, it just about took him out in front of me. And I've got that on my video. This is my concern right here. And not only that, I watched this man put this pole barn up that he's doing, and I don't have a problem with it personally, but I knew there was something up when I watched him put that building up. And then he started putting soffits on it, metal, and he's talking about people stealing his stuff. He had semi-trailers out there with his insulation in it on that property prior to that, locking them up. I know he's running the record business out of there. I know he's running the insulation business out of there, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard that you already got a guy you're looking at letting him run his pressure washing business out of there. Now, I've heard that just through mutual people. I don't know if it's true or not. I know a lot of people. Me and you got mutual friends, believe it or not.
Pressure washing companies across the
Yeah, Mr. Altman.
was talking about storing
Mr.
equipment
Altman.
in your building.
Mr. Altman, please just address us, okay?
So I don't know if that's it. My problem, I don't want 3 businesses running in this little spot. This piece of property too is wet. I know I've walked it out there when you get rains at time, and that water will come up on that backside of the property. We used to have a mobile home there, my dad did. So I can tell you firsthand, I've seen it. Now, as far as the cars coming in, yeah, he's going and picking them up. Are they wrecked? Are the radiators busted? Are the transmissions busted? Yeah. It ain't like you're going to pick up somebody on the side of the road just broke down. Now, all this oil and this transmission fluid, I guarantee is getting in that creek. Is there any type of impact study been done? My biggest problem is how he come in and done this. Okay? I had to buy the permits to get to where I've got. I had to put the money up. I didn't go build something and put a pile of money in it and then come up here and say, oh, forgive me, I didn't know or whatever. Well, you better know if you got your money and you're putting your money into it. So I don't buy a lot of the statements that he's saying here. I'm honest. I wish he'd be more honest because I've seen it with my own eyes. And I'm totally against somebody that's going to even operate in my neighborhood with that type of character. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So it's up to y'all. But I will tell you this. Whatever you do today is going to set a precedence of how I do mine in the future. And that's where I'm going to leave it at.
Can I ask you a question? Yep. I'll ask you the same one I asked your dad. Do you have a problem with the insulation storage there, or is it?
I don't really, let me say this. I would not mind, the property in that little area is going to become commercial before it's over with, and I know that. But I want restrictions put on it, and I want teeth in it. If he don't follow through with what he's got on that paper, go back to what it was. My question is, if he lives right up the road not far from us, or he's got property right there, why didn't he put it in his neighborhood?
If this gets approved for the insulation storage and moves forward, he'll have several more meetings like this he's going to have to go through, and you'll have a chance to address every one of them.
Yeah, that's fine.
And they will take into account all the stuff that's been done there, how it's been done, drainage and all that stuff. But that comes at the next step.
As far as the commercial end, I don't really have a problem. Okay? One business, and I don't want it a record business, and I don't want it something that's going to drag the neighborhood down. If you're going to put something in a neighborhood, you put something in that neighborhood to lift that neighborhood up and bring the value up, not.
That's why I was asking if you had a problem with the insulation.
I didn't have a problem with the insulation company. No, I don't. As long as he keeps it up and keeps his property neat and nice or whatever, but don't start dragging up multiple businesses in there and everybody's coming in and going and it's just not good. It is.
if this gets approved, like I said, and he goes through the process of getting a development order on it, for the insulation business, he won't be able to bring other things in there without that being a code violation, and then,
That would be fine with me. And I wish him the best as far as business goes, because believe me, it's hard enough being business, but you do things right when you do it. You know, I've got a couple of small businesses too, and I have to do it right, legit.
all right, thank you, Mr. Altman.
I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Got anybody else who wants to address this? Anybody on Zoom or in the audience? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comments, and board, what is your wishes?
I do have a question for Mac on the planning department again. Light industrial, what all does that allow them to put there?
It does allow them to put a range of businesses.
I mean, because once one goes in,
But
okay,
they have to get a development order
okay,
for any business that goes in there.
okay,
And we can restrict the number of businesses that go in there.
right.
Um,
But that restriction
But we
would
will,
have to be put on now?
I will tell you this, I will not approve a towing business there.
Right.
And what I told Mr. Estes just a few minutes ago, he has got to remove the towing operation before the next code board meeting, because we're going back to the code board now that we can meet again at the code board. And we're gonna get a final order on that and tell him to remove that towing business. Now, the land use change may be a remedy for the insulation business and the building that he built, but he's a long way from the end of the road and getting legal on the operation on this particular lot. But towing business, I agree with the neighbors there. That backup signal going all night long will never stop. There will always be wrecked cars on that lot if a towing operation is allowed to be there. And I completely agree with everything that those speakers said. Towing business is highly incompatible in that location. We will not approve that.
If we were to make the change or approve the change to light industrial, could there be some sort of a limit put on the number of businesses, or is that already established in the code so that you review that if it were to come before them to add another business?
We would be reviewing that, and they would have to make application for that, and we would have to find that that would be consistent with the land use category and compatible with the neighborhood. But if this board chose to condition your recommendation to limit it to that operation, that's certainly something, a recommendation you could make to the BCC. And it might be, if we get to the BCC, the appropriate thing to do to have a development agreement that limits those uses. So that could possibly be part of a recommendation from this board.
My issue with this is we've got repeated violations that's been repeated. And he's been told what he needed to do, and he repeatedly did not do it. I can see this down the road as continued violations, could be, even if he gets the insulation business in there. He was told, he said he could put the pole barn up. Somebody said he could put the pole barn up, but he was told unless he closed it in. Well, he put the pole barn up, and knowing he wasn't supposed to close it in, he went and closed it in. So he's doing things already that's not supposed to be done. He hasn't complied with what he's been told he had to do. So to me, we're giving him shaking his hand and saying, well, go ahead, we'll just keep,
and
violating you, and I have a problem with that.
Mr. Barker, in spite of Mr. Estes' testimony, no one in planning told them he could put up a pole barn
I believe
as an accessory structure without a primary on that residential lot.
You got any more questions for Matt?
I don't have any.
Okay, what's the board's
Thank you.
wishes?
I make a motion to deny.
We have a motion,
Second.
second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. John, did you vote?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Denied. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That would move us to item number 7, the partial abandonment of easement adjacent to Emerald Cove Lane. This has been reviewed by Bob Baronti also, and I'll ask him to briefly introduce it.
Hi. This is a request to approve by ordinance, project PA 20-000004 being reviewed by myself. This is an abandonment application, as Max stated, submitted by Stephen Tatum on behalf of WG Development LLC, requesting to utilize the existing setbacks to raise the existing house and replace with a new structure on 0.034 plus or minus acres. This property has a future land use of residential and a zoning of neighborhood infill, and is located at 74 Emerald Cove Lane South, and it can be identified by the parcel number in your staff report. All comments have been addressed. We have the standard Public Works comment, and the agent is on Zoom today to make a presentation. I'd like you to ask you to enter the staff report in the record, and I'd like to state that all technical aspects of this meet the code. Do you have any comments before I sit down and turn it over to Mr. Tatum?
I do, because when I was reading the material, I found 3 different numbers in 3 different places, well, actually a few more places than that, on the acreage. I know it's a small amount of acreage, but on the agenda item, it said 0.25 plus or minus acres. And one of the attachments, it says 0.034. And then on some of the maps and things, it says 0.29, so.
It's 2.9, 0.29.
0.
Yes.
All
And
right.
we got a new survey too.
How many square feet is that? Do you know? Because I know it's a small piece.
Yeah.
I didn't do the, oh, yes, it's 1,473.9 square feet.
But that's at 0.034.
Four.
You've dropped it down some.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't do math
Oh, okay.
in my head.
Thought you'd just do that in your head, Bob.
So
All right.
it is down to 0.29.
It is 12,632.4. It just took me a little bit
I
longer
knew
to
you had it in
do
you.
it in my head.
You had to take your shoes off, didn't you? All right.
That is pretty incredible. I can do it like that.
Yeah. All right, let's see. We got any more questions for Bob? We will enter your,
And I will
Staff
turn it
report
over to Mr. Tatum, and I'd like to thank Mac for his calculator.
yeah. Mr. Tatum?
Good afternoon. You guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Sorry I couldn't be there in person. Thanks to everything going on, I had to stay home tonight. But I would clarify now the question about the square footages or the acreage. The lot itself is 0.29 acres, so a little over 12,000 square feet, which is a large lot in South Walton.
That's the lot we're talking
area
about.
that we are, sorry?
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay. The area we're seeking to abandon is 0.034. We rounded it up to 0.4 in our presentation, so you'll see yet another number. But it's 0.04 acres, 0.039 acres. If it's okay with you guys, I would like to introduce my client. His name's William Gregory. He's in the crowd there. He'll wave to you guys. He purchased the property in February of this year. There's currently a house on it. It's 74 Emerald Cove Lane over in Inlet Beach. The property is encumbered by one of those government easements. It's one of those 33-foot in the government plat, or the government patent that was originally issued for the property. It's kind of rare in that easement only is provided for a 33-foot roadway, not for a utilities or drainage, as some of the different patents do say. I'll show you that in a minute. That was issued back in 1948. There was an adjoining easement on the lots that are north of it that are also 33 feet wide, and that's where the current road is situated, is within that right of way. As Mr. Baronti said, the applicant wishes to reconstruct the existing house. The house that's there now was built back in 1975. It sits, actually, there's a carport for that house that sits in this easement area already. So if they, were to try to widen the road for some reason, that carport would be a major hindrance. And there's a lot of other structures on neighboring lots that are also in the easement area. Because of the dune system to the south of the house going towards the beach, there's some constraints as to how the actual buildable area of the lot. So in order to build a lot, or to build a house that's suitable for the area, we need to be able to measure our front setback from the property line and not from where the easement is. Planning department requires that you measure your 25-foot setback off of, if there is an easement on the property for a public road, you have to measure 25 feet off where the easement is. That's the reason we're seeking to abandon it at this point, so that we can measure our 25-foot setback off of the roadway that is to our north. That would be where our lot line is. If it's okay with you guys, I'm going to show you a little presentation I prepared. So I'm going to share my screen and make sure I don't mess this up. So give me 1 second. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm going to go into full mode here. All right. What you're looking at there is an overview of the area. Outlined in red is where our current house sits. In blue is the cottages of Inlet Beach. You might want to pay special attention to that. It's going to come up again in a minute, and I have this again to show you to where it's located. So that's just a general overview of what's going on in the area.
Okay.
The original.
Muted.
This is the original. Did I hear I was muted? All right, this is the original government patent. I pulled it out so that you can see there and highlighted in red that this patent is issued subject to an easement. Sorry, I'm not sure why I did that. Patent is subject to an easement for a roadway not to exceed 33 feet in width to be constructed along the north and west property lines of said lot. This is the survey of the area that we're going to abandon, or we're seeking to abandon. As you can see, right now there's a carport area that sits within that easement area. Anything that would be built, you're looking at a 33-foot easement in width, and it really is more, that's more than a 25-foot setback would be. There's not a way to really extend the roadway to widen it any because of what you're about to see next. Again, cottages of Inlet Beach. This is important because when the cottages of Inlet Beach were platted, I don't remember the year now, it hasn't been too long ago, it was in the 2000s, 2004. The county abandoned that 33-foot right-of-way, this exact same one we're talking about now, in the area for the cottages of Inlet Beach. So if the county sought to widen the road in any way, it would have to be narrowed through the cottages of Inlet Beach, which is just 2 lots down from where we sit. This is a blown-up version of where the easement is now, or would be now if it were actually shown. What you're seeing there that shows dedicated 33-foot public right-of-way is the right-of-way for Emerald Cove Lane, and it sits on the southern portion of the lots to the north. Although that's been replatted, so it's kind of confusing to see it as just a replat. Let me stop sharing. All right, so that's what we're looking at. We're seeking to just be able to utilize our property to its fullest potential. We'll abide by the setbacks, 25 feet from the property line, And I don't know if you have any other questions, be happy to try to answer them.
Y'all got any questions for him?
I'm a little confused here. You're gonna have to educate me on, you're talking about a 25-foot setback but you're asking for 33 feet, but you can't get closer than 25 feet. I'm lost here. You're gonna have to make it more clear to me.
I can walk you through that. All right, so there's a setback. I believe the setback's actually 20 feet, but 25 is what I believe was mine.
On the existing property.
Per the land development code, if you were to build a house that did not have an easement on it, then you would have to step back that far.
Okay.
Because the easement is on the property, the planning department takes the position that you have to set back not 25 feet from your, or 20 feet from your property line, but 20 feet from the 33-foot easement area. So that really puts us a setback 53 feet from our property line. And that pushes us so far back towards the south, towards the dune system, that there's really not a lot of buildable area left on the lot. Because once you start impacting the dune system, well, you can't impact the dune system.
And the other, whatever that development was to the east, they've already been given that easement, you said?
They've already had that easement abandoned on their property, yes, ma'am.
It looked like there was a lot in between the property you're talking about and the other development. Was that correct? Did I see that correct?
That's correct.
What about that property?
Well, they have every right to seek the same abandonment. They've not done that as far as I know. I didn't see anything in the public records indicating that there was an abandonment for that lot. There's also a lot to our west, and that lot also has this 33-foot easement across it.
Are there any other abandonments in that area on that road down there? Maybe to the east of where the abandonments have already taken place?
Not that I'm aware of. The only one I'm aware of is that one that was done as part of the plat for the cottages at Inlet Beach.
Okay.
But as I said, that easement is strictly for a roadway. It's not for drainage, not for utilities. They can only put a road in it. And right now, there's already structures built in it that were done back in the 70s. And frankly, if they were to try to widen the road, they would only be able to widen it for the 3 lots that exist to the west of the cottages at Inlet Beach, because once they get to that property line for the cottages, they don't have anywhere else that they can widen.
And there's already a road, I assume, through the north side of it anyway.
Yes, sir. There's a road on that Emerald Cove Lane is there. It's a shell road, I believe, a crushed shell road. There at the, going through the cottages of Inlet Beach, they've gone in with brick pavers and spruced theirs up a little bit, so it looks nicer. But it's all kind of a dusty area.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
All right, let's see if we had anybody who wanted to speak on this one. Got a Tanos Connell. Close enough.
Yeah, I'm Tanos Khalil, Kalil, 525 North Walton Lakeshore Drive. I was for the abandonment back, I don't know how long ago it's been, when I think it was Mr. Comer used to own that property. And it only seemed fair because there's a road there, and then they let them, they let the other people build on those 3 lots. So that's not going to really change anything to the south side, where that 33-foot is. For all those owners on that side over there, it's not going to really change anything. They can't really do anything to enhance their property. And it didn't seem fair to have only part. They should have just abandoned that doggone thing all the way from one corner to the other, really, to tell the truth, in the first place. But they didn't do it. They did it I guess it has to be done piecemeal. You have to ask for it. So I'm for it. I just want, let you guys know that.
Thank you, sir. William Gregory? Okay, all right. I don't think we have any questions for you. Thank you, Dave. Okay, anybody else want to speak on this in the audience or on Zoom? We have a Zoom. Mary Jane Gleason?
Yes, this has already been addressed. That area would never be able to get a emergency vehicle through. It was brought up in, I believe, 5 years ago, and it was, they said, they went through all of the information about why it would not work. I'm not even sure why it was ever allowed to be brought up again.
It's not clear to me what you're saying. Are you saying that because they gave them the easement on the other 3 properties, that the emergency?
No.
No?
No. You're misunderstanding.
I'm
What
sure.
they're asking for, the property goes literally, the property on the north goes literally to the other side of the road. The road is built on the easement of the north property. They went for this easement, Comer and Millington went for an easement abandonment 5 years ago. And the county got involved, and the county came in and said, there's no way they can do it. I'm appalled that it's being considered again. This has nothing to do, there's no room there, because the people on the north side, their property goes all the way to the south side of the road, literally to where they have that little gate. That's the beginning, that's the end of the north side's property. The entire road is on the north side's property. If they have any utilities or anything that goes through, it's got to go through the easement on the north side's property. This was bought knowing that it was, the abandonment had already been denied. I mean, this is a last-ditch effort, in my opinion. I can't even believe that this is being considered, nor can I believe that Tanos is supporting it.
Do you live in the area?
I do.
Where's your property?
Kitty corner from this. I live down Emerald Cove Lane. I'm the first house on the north side of Emerald Cove Lane. The inequities of the north side, the entire Emerald Cove Lane is on the easements of the property owners on the north.
So you live on the north side?
I do. And the easement on the south side was abandoned. When they say that, it was like 45 years ago. Go back and look at the numbers. It was not a recent issue.
Property
The
could be.
road is on the easement of the north side. The property of the south side begins right where it is. Matter of fact, the house is literally in its own easement already. All 3 of them are. The house to the west of them is a substandard lot. The house to the right of them has got, they started putting storage sheds and plantings on the walkover that is in the Inlet Beach neighborhood plan. They didn't want it because they don't want people on their property. They want to keep it. But there is in the Inlet Beach neighborhood plan a walkover right there.
Is there bicycle traffic in that area? Bicycles?
Pardon?
Is there bicycle traffic in that area?
No.
There is.
No.
There's not? Okay.
There is not, no.
I'm just, the reason I asked that, could that be used for any type of parking for anything? I mean, could it be for?
There's no parking there. There's no room there. When you go to when they walk over it, which is in the process of being put over with the TDC, when that walkover goes over, you're going to see how tight that area is going to be. When the walkover goes over, that easement that they are absolutely asking for is going to be needed for the county, for that area, for the neighborhood access.
That's the reason I asked that. Could that be used, could that easement be used to park bicycles or something, if people walking over the walkover?
Absolutely.
I think it could be used for, because I
Absolutely.
know there's a
Currently-
problem in that area with that.
Thought
Yeah,
there was
I am
something
in that
the-
area, and I have people that are absolutely, they're driving from Bay County, and they're parking in my driveway, and then they get hostile, telling me I shouldn't have bought so close to the beach if I didn't want to share my driveway with people. This area is way too condensed. The plan there is to put in a mega mansion, which, I'm sorry, it was not bought, it was set in stone what was available. It was set in stone that this has already failed. It was pointed out to me that the attorney that they hired was, if you wanted to get an easement abandoned, this is the guy I'm stunned. I would be there in person, but I am stunned that it has even gone this far. Go back and look at history. Go back and look at the past, all the past meetings. It was hands down.
Mac, do you remember anything about that?
Pardon me?
I'm sorry, I'm talking to the planning department.
I did that project, and I don't remember it really well either, other than it was denied. I believe it was 2 lots, because it was 2 owners. They went in together. I believe it was the western lot and maybe this lot as well. And I believe, if I remember right, that beach walkover she's talking about, it's going to go right along that western property line of that western house, right where the road turns, makes that 90-degree turn. You go straight down, there's an existing easement there, and that's where the dune walkover will be. And they wanted to abandon a portion of that as well as the one going east-west. So it was one part of it going north-south, part of it going east-west. And that was ultimately denied by the county commission, but it's been so long ago, that's really all the recollection I have.
So there is already an approved walkover that's going to go in there on the west side of that western property?
I believe
it is
the
in
answer
the
is
Inlet
yes,
Beach
yeah.
neighborhood plan.
They put it in the neighborhood plan because it's something the TDC wants to do. I guess it's just a timing thing. When are they going to actually build that? But there's a current easement there that the county will utilize in order to do that.
Right, on the west side of the property that is,
Immediately to the west.
yes.
Yes.
Where where he put the shed in to block anybody walking over. It used to be just a walkover. Then he put it in a shed, started putting in palm trees and anything that's immovable.
Okay, well, that's on another issue then on that. So, but do you have any other things you'd like to add?
No, I think I'm good, thank you.
All right, thank you. Oh, we got anybody
If
else?
I may
that'd like to speak?
respond, could I respond to that?
Yes, I'm going to close public comment, and
Okay.
and now you can respond to it. All right, go ahead.
The dune walkover is not, that easement that goes towards the beach is not on our lot. That is on the lot to the west of us. That has nothing to do with the abandonment we're asking for. Also, she made a statement about fire trucks, emergency vehicles not being able to get down there. You look at your staff report, South Walton Fire had no issues as long as nothing changed as far as the way the roadway is currently existing, and that nothing was blocked.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, commissioners, you got any questions?
I don't have a question, I just a statement that if that easement can be used at any future time for parking of a bicycle or standing or anything else as congested as that whole area is up there, then I think giving it up is.
There was some statement in a deed that, was read earlier, it said something about it just being a right-of-way, I believe. I don't know if that.
Well, it said a right of way
excludes
for a
parking or
road,
not.
I guess, I heard for a road to extend the road, but if it could extend the road, I'm not sure why you couldn't park something on it.
That's what I was gonna do, is ask if somebody knew Mac or, Mac can, does that allow for parking, or what does it mean when they've got?
The authorization for roadway would allow for parking also.
Okay.
We have a serious problem in that area with parking, of anything from bicycles to standing and everything else. And if we give up that property, then I can't see giving away property that is so valuable for that right now, for the area. My feelings.
Better the, area.
At any future time.
What's the board's wishes?
I'd make a motion to deny.
We have a motion to deny. I'll second it. Second. Do we have any more questions? No more questions? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. All opposed? Aye. We have one opposed. Motion passes for denial.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next 3 items are quasi judicial in nature.
Okay, so we need to have people sworn in?
Mr. Steve, how are we going to do this?
I'm available to do the swearing, Mr. Carpenter.
Would everybody stand up and raise your right hand? So it's up to you now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For all of you who are going to provide testimony, do you swear that your testimony will be true and accurate as presented to this board?
I do.
All right, thanks, Mac.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item under our QJ agenda is the Forest View Village PUD Amendment Number 3. I think it's a pretty straightforward amendment. It's been reviewed by Tim Brown, and Tim can introduce it for us.
Hey, guys, before y'all get started, this is John Roberts. I'm going to have to recuse myself. I am a part owner of the property that lies immediately adjacent to the east on this. And that matter will come before the Planning Commission probably next month as well. So that's me just having to step aside on this one. I'll get the form, Karen, I guess, the next time I'm in and sign off on it to explain why I'm having to recuse myself.
All right, thank you, John.
Thank you. This is a major development or application submitted by Interlight Engineering requesting approval to remove approximately 6 acres from the southeast corner of the PUD on 43.24 acres with the future land use of commercial and a zoning category of general commercial. Project's located on the north side of Highway 98 east, west of Serenoa Road, and east of MC Davis Boulevard. And that's the gist of it. They just want to remove this 6 acres so it doesn't fall under the PUD requirements, and everything else in the PUD, all the entitlements will stay the same. It'll just be 6 acres less in overall size. So I'll entertain any questions. I'd like to enter the staff report into the record, please.
Okay, so be it. Y'all got any more questions for the staff? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. The applicant?
Thank you, and good evening. I'm David Smith with Interlight Engineering. And the Forest View Village PUD was originally approved in 2005, and it's been amended several times throughout the years. And this is the 3rd amendment to the PUD. And as Tim presented, we are here just to remove this 6 acres, which is this area that's white, and then the remaining PUD will remain exactly as it's approved. All the entitlements stay the same, so everything else stays the same. It's just to remove this 6 acres in this location. And there are no other changes proposed. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you all may have.
The map we have shows this little piece even farther to the east on
Yes, ma'am.
98 wetlands. That stays.
That stays within the PUD, yes, ma'am.
Seems kind of weird, but guess it's not relevant.
Any more questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Let's see if we had anybody, we did not have anybody sign up to speak on this. We have anybody in the audience or on Zoom that would like to speak on this project? Seeing none, we will close public comments. I probably need to state for clarification that back when this thing was originally, the original development order came through, that I was one of the owners. I have not been for a long time. I have no interest in it, so this does not affect me or the project. All right, board, what's your wishes? Or do you have more questions or discussion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is Agenda Item 9, Wildwood Village. This is a major development that's been reviewed by Bob Baronti, and I'll ask Bob to introduce it.
Hi.
Bob.
This is a major development order, application submitted by Jenkins Engineering on behalf of Mariner Land LLC. The property is 8.95 plus or minus acres with a future land use of residential in the zoning district of neighborhood infill. It's located at Highway 98 East, turn onto North Orange Street, and then turn east and go down Wildwood Trail. The property is on the north side. It's identified by the multiple parcel numbers in your staff report. There are no outstanding comments. It meets the comprehensive plan and land development code. I will be glad to answer any questions. Mr. Jenkins is here to represent the applicant, and he will go in depth. Do you have any questions for me before I sit down?
Now, do you want to enter staff report?
Yes, I was just getting ready to do that. Can I enter staff report in the record, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any
I guess that
questions?
was a question. Thank you.
Any questions for staff? All right. Applicant, Scott?
Good evening. I'm Scott Jenkins with Jenkins Engineering, Jenkins. I'm here representing the applicant for the project. Just to give you a little bit of history, this actually was approved for a similar residential subdivision back in about the 2006 timeframe, except it was actually 67 lots on the piece of property at that time, and was done as a PUD that had some setback restrictions on it. This, since then, has been changed to do 45 proposed lots. The lots are a little bit larger than they were previously, more just a standard subdivision with standard setbacks, 20 in the front, 7.5 on the sides, and 15 in the rear. The property, just to give you an idea of where it is, it's located on the north side of 98 in the Inlet Beach area. It's this large piece here. It's approximately 9 acres in total. As part of this project, the developer will be paving 2 existing roads that are dirt right now. Those 2 roads are here on the north and the south, and they are connect to North Orange. It is East Pinewood and then Wildwood Trail at the south end, and those will be the primary access points. The development itself has a fairly large preservation area up in the northeast corner. That's a xeric hammock that will all remain intact for perpetuity. I've talked to a couple of the residents out there, and I just wanted to put on the record, if you guys do decide to move this forward to the BCC with a positive recommendation, the owner is more than willing to place a fence, a privacy fence, along this eastern property line, and will probably fence more of the property than just that. And then there was also a question regarding the maximum height limitations on the property, and that is going to be something somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5 to 3 stories at a maximum. I do have some examples. Housing type. that will be done at the property. So it's similar to what's out in that area already, kind of a coastal cottage style housing. And that's just kind of an overview. I'll be happy to answer any questions you guys may have about the project in general.
Is the density of 5 units per acre pretty much what that is out in that area?
Yeah, I kind of did this figure to show all of the actual developments that have been done in this area in the last 15 years or so. And there's really about, this is a list of all of them. If you really averaged all the developments, including Grand Point, Preserve at Inlet Beach, Pinewood Preserve, the Ivy at Inlet Beach, Sunset Key Cottages, Waterview, all the developments, they actually average about 7. So this is a little bit lower than typical.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we'll open up public
How far are
comments.
y'all talking about paving on that pine, on that?
Wait, who's talking?
Mr. Khalil.
I'm sorry, hold on, I'm gonna bring you up. You signed up to talk, so come on up and talk.
I was just asking, you asked about a question for him, so since he was here, I was just gonna ask while he had the map up, and it's Khalil, I live right here. How far are y'all paving down this pavement?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of bring that up for clarification while that's an important point. There is an easement that runs down through this, there's a 33-foot easement that runs along the north side of this property. That easement actually stops about right there. That's why the pavement stops there. The rest of it is still there, but I think it's just for utilities and not necessarily for roads. So that's kind of why it's done that way.
All right, thank you. All right, we had a Mary Carmichael.
Hi, I'm Mary Carmichael. It's Carmichael. I live at 681 North Walton Lakeshore. This is my lot right here. I've lived in Walton County for over 50 years. I moved to that lot in 1986. We built our home, raised our children there. We love to paddleboard, fish, enjoy the natural resources, so I'm thrilled that Walton County has gone to the extremes to make sure that, everything is protected. I was glad to see that there was a preservation area. However, it says preservation and common. As I started to look at the information that was in the agenda packet, on the page, I believe it's C06, which is the landscaping plan. On that page, it actually talks about the preservation area and how it should be 50%, which is typical of the neighborhood plan and the comprehensive plan, especially being so close to a coastal dune lake. It is within 300 feet of the coastal dune lake, and those areas should be protected from erosion, stormwater, all of the impact to our environment, as well as, the sand pines in that preservation area, all the birds, everything that's there, I would love to see remain there. What I'm concerned about is it talks that there is a preservation buyout. I don't understand what that means. That basically they can start with 50% preservation, then they cut it back to 34%. Now they're down to 14% proposed. That easement that's back behind there, now they're showing it coming all the way to the back of my lot. I've lived there for 34 years. I've even helped maintain the public easement that belongs to Lakeshore Estates. I know the county helps prevent the erosion, and they have worked on limiting people, traffic, and made it a utility easement only, setting up barriers, but there's still people that come down that road, try to do four-wheeling turnaround. It is a dirt road right now, and I think that's great that they're going to improve it. But I am very concerned that is not compatible with Lakeshore Estates. Lakeshore Estates has been there a long time. The density of these lots, and also the height, building height. Way I understand, if it's near a coastal dune lake and in that protection zone, you should be able to have at least 50 feet back for every story. I'm not sure if that's correct, and staff will probably know.
I don't think there's a coastal dune lake in that area.
Yes, Lake Powell. is a coastal dune lake. It is in part of the Inlet Beach Community Plan.
Okay.
I have it with me if you'd like to.
No, I'm
Okay.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, again, I'm very familiar with the area. I enjoy living there. It's a great place to raise your family, friends that come and visit, they park. Lots of people park right at the edge of my lot. I'm okay with that because they access the TDC. It's the only access to Lake Shore, from Lake Shore to Lake Powell, and it is available for the public to use. My concern is this is not single residential homes. These homes are potentially 4 stories high. They have a designation of vacation residential. I don't know what that means. So again, I've been doing a lot of reading in the comprehensive plan, but I know you guys know it very well. I'm not against the development, but I don't think it should be negotiable. If something is preservation, then and for perpetuity, then I think we should make it conservation. It should be protected for their community as well as ours. I mean, we have woodpeckers. I have all kinds of birds every single day singing their hearts out in that little area. So you're telling me originally this was 3 acres they were going to preserve, which is typical for a neighborhood of that size, and now it's down to only 14%, which is a half an acre. So, I think it's important that if you haven't looked at the Florida Natural Areas Inventory that really, outlines what species, animals, plant life, vegetation that is native to the area, that if they tear it down, they have the right to rebuild it somewhere else or plant their own trees. Well, what good is that? These trees have been here for a very long time. And kind of like, I've lived there for 34 years. So I felt like I should come to the meeting, at least express my concerns, and hope that some of these things could be worked out. Because I think if we give them free rein, it will be a common area, potentially be a concert on the lawn. And again, they don't show the easement that's 33 feet. They show their property line going all the way to the back of my fence. And also the road comes into what's supposed to be utility easement only. And if it's not clear, I brought the pictures so you guys could see it hasn't been maintained for a very, very long time. But this is where the actual walk access is to the lake. And this is my house right here. So they have the road, if you look on the diagram, it goes right into that easement that should be protected. So what I would like to see is at least 33 feet of the easement, and then they're supposed to, if they go to the height limit that they say they're going to, it's not compatible. There's not more than a 2-story home in our neighborhood, so they should be 50 feet back for that extra stories. I don't want somebody looking down in my backyard where I've lived, for almost 40 years. And I do swim in my pool naked sometimes, so that might scare a few neighbors. But either way, I think what's most important is it needs to have the open space protected. The conservation efforts that are being made in our community are good. And so I'm not against development. I just want to make that clear. So
I'm going to let the applicant address your concerns.
Okay.
Scott Jenkins again. Yeah, just to clear up the preservation question, the site has approximately 3 acres of habitat that needs to be preserved. I think it's 3.2, somewhere right in that area. The requirement in the comprehensive plan and the land development code is, because of the type of habitat it is you preserve 50% of that, and then you have an option to buy out a portion of that 50%. So what is being preserved on this site plan is actually 1.14 acres. Buying out 14%, I believe, is the allowable. They could buy up to 25. They're only buying out 14% of what's there. The preservation area will be preservation, remain just as it is, untouched in perpetuity. It will be labeled such as that on the plat. They will never be able to do anything else with that. It's labeled as common area also here, because anything that's not part of a lot on a plat has to be called common area because everybody in the plat owns it. That's the only reason it's called common. If you want us to take that label off, we can, but I think we'll probably have to put it back on when it's time to plat. But that's all it means. It doesn't mean anything else can go there. To address the question about the coastal dune lake, that's actually on this plan. The 300-foot limit is actually right here. And the project is not within the 300-foot coastal dune lake buffer area there. And last, if this board prefers that we only pave this road, not pave all the way to the end of the easement, I can assure you the developer will be more than happy to not do that and save the money in paving. So if that is something that you guys want to see. I think that addressed most of the questions, but I guess the main thing is that we actually are probably exceeding a little bit more than what's definitely required for preservation. It will remain that forever and ever for now until ever. So
I do have a question on the paving of the road. That is a right-of-way, and that includes being able to put a road in and utilities, correct?
It does, yes, ma'am.
So it's not like you're taking something that just because it hasn't been used, shouldn't be used for that. That's what it's designated for, am I correct?
It is. I will tell you that I don't know that there's a possibility that it can extend any further to the east, as if you wanted to keep extending that. I don't think they would be able to do that with a road. They may be able to do it with utilities, and Mr. Khalil may be able to speak to that because he actually had the easement changed to just a utility easement a little bit further down. So if you decide to shorten it, it's really no harm, I mean, to the development. I don't know that it would ever be able to extend further, the roadway.
I just wanted to make sure there was implication that because it hadn't been maintained, that you couldn't put a road there, but that is not accurate, is it?
No, that you absolutely could through that area of the right of way.
So the easement that Lakeshore Estates owns, right here, goes all the way to the lake. And they work with the PVC, and it's strictly a utility easement. It's marked that way on the map as well.
I was talking about the east-west easement.
East-west,
yeah.
right. And then
The road.
Right. And so it ends because Thomas Kalil, he's just 2 houses down from me. So that road could only just go right behind my house and the house next door. But, you know, the setbacks is what I'm concerned about with the building height. I don't know. You didn't.
Oh, he did. It was, they're more than 300 feet from the edge of the lake.
So it's going to be 33 feet plus the 20 feet, so it'll be 53 feet?
For a setback to these homes?
Yeah, because see, you show it going right to the back of my house. And this is 33 feet. And
There
this is
won't be-
changed later on or bought out.
It cannot be
Okay.
changed. And I guess you guys could probably agree to that.
So what is being bought out, I guess is the question.
The amount,
It can be
the
reduced.
amount.
It can be reduced.
It can be reduced from 50% down to 25. You have an option to buy out a portion, and they're buying out a portion of that. They're buying out 14% of that.
But the property across the street from you will remain in preservation. Well, the easement then, I'm sorry.
And easement she's speaking of is right with that preservation area. And this is where they're like 30-something feet elevation, goes down to the lake. I'm at 25. So anything that they don't control will go right into that lake.
They'll have to control it on site. That's part of the engineering process.
I looked through the
Yeah, and
stormwater
I'm sorry, I didn't address that. We do have a stormwater system where we actually retain the 100-year event for this because we are so close to a coastal. And that includes the roadway construction and the development itself.
So will there be water being released to the wetlands?
But there are no wetlands that I know of adjacent to this site.
Well, into the preservation?
No, no.
Thank you. Thanks, Scott. All right. Board, y'all got any questions? Wait, we had one more. Hold on. Mr. Connell, did you want to speak to this?
I just, and you brought it up. like to know where the stormwater is gonna go. I mean, if you could kind of give us an idea on the map here where the stormwater, when you're doing it, I mean, like they have like retention ponds and things along the highway. I'm just wondering where it would be in this.
Yeah, this is the grading and drainage plan. We actually have an exfiltration system for all of this development, so it all goes underground into gravel chambers here, and it's actually designed to retain and not.
So it goes under the houses, is that what you're telling me?
No, under the roadways.
Under the roadways, kind of like they did at Rosemary Beach before.
Similar
they
to
ended up
Rosemary,
having
similar
to
to
start
Kaya, some of the
using
other-
pavers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not as
Yeah,
familiar with
okay.
Rosemary, but yeah, it all goes under the roadway.
Okay.
All right, do we have any more questions from the audience? Do we have anybody on Zoom that want to address this? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comments, and board, what's your wishes? We have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. Further discussion? Being none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Thank you, Commissioners. That brings us to the last item on our agenda, number 10. This is the Southern Phase 2. It's a major development that's been reviewed by Bob Baronti, and we'll ask him to introduce this apartment complex.
I'm back. This is the Southern Phase 2, as Max said. This application has been submitted by Jenkins Engineering on behalf of Walton County Holdings, LLC, requesting to construct a 108 apartment complex with other associated infrastructure improvements on 10.01 plus or minus acres. The project property has a future land use of mixed use with a zoning district of Town Center 1 and is located from the intersection of Chat Hawley Road and J.D. Miller Road, south on J.D. Miller Road. Subject parcel is approximately 0.12 miles on the west side of J.D. Miller Road and can be identified by the parcel numbers in your staff report. All comments have been addressed. The project meets the comprehensive plan. The applicant, Mr. Jenkins, is here. May I enter the staff report into record and answer any questions you may have?
Hey, y'all have any questions for staff? Thank you, Bob.
I'll turn it over to Mr. Jenkins.
I'm Scott Jenkins with Jenkins Engineering, again representing the applicant here. This is actually a second phase of a project that's actually in construction right now. They're almost done with the first phase, which is directly south of where this parcel is. So basically, this is just a continuation of that project, and has kind of always been their intent here. But this is basically a multifamily apartment complex on J.D. Miller Road. It's part of the Town Center 1, so it meets some of the comprehensive plan goals for workforce housing and things like that. And the development itself is basically 108 apartment units, a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units here. We have a wet detention pond in the back. We will have a small wetland impact, about 0.4 acres on the very north boundary that they're permitting now. One thing that I do want to point out, Mr. Harvstead, who's an adjacent neighbor, is here tonight, and he met earlier with someone else from my office. But if you notice, there's actually an existing fence that goes up the rear property line. That's Mr. Harvstead's fence, and he wants to make sure of a couple of things. One is that the developer has no intention of impacting his fence or taking it down or changing it. 2, that he would have the ability to access his fence if he needed to maintain it. And 3, that the two parties can work together and just figure out if there is a boundary dispute along that line. And the developer has agreed to that. I think he's gotten an email stating as such. And I think he's satisfied with it, but I just wanted to point it out and get it on the record, that is the case, and they're more than willing. There's actually no development within about 400 feet of that rear property line, so it doesn't impact anything as far as the project itself. So if you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Could you repeat what you said about the wetlands? There's something going on with the permitting on that?
Yes, ma'am. They're permitting those now. There's about 0.4 acres along this boundary where that will be impacted with fill, so of existing wetlands. Okay.
With the town center one?
I will, I'm sorry. There's a mixture of use requirement for Town Center 1, and the amenities associated with that, we basically have 3 that are required here. The first one is the residential component of the apartments. The second one is the civic use. There's a clubhouse that's going to be available to the public for civic uses and meetings, which, as somebody that has to do community meetings a lot, is severely needed in this area. And there's also a community park in the rear of the property, which will just be a native natural park with no really improvements, but more like a nature park.
So I guess you're the appropriate person to ask. It looks to me like you're asking for a density a little bit above what is the allowed density.
Well, by doing those things, those are actually density bonus points that we can get by doing those, so we're actually at that. That's how we get there.
Yeah, they asked for that to be clarified on the engineering technical review memo.
Correct.
So it's the bonus density points is what got you to 10 above.
That's correct, yes. It's a base density of 4. You get 6 additional bonus points for doing those mixture of uses, including the park.
All right.
And just to point out also, the park, because one of the questions is typically, y'all might not ask it, but there will be an easement along the access way to it, and there are about 36 additional extra parking spaces for the public for those civic and park uses. So over and above what would be required.
And this is more of an affordable housing type apartment complex, am I correct?
It is more workforce housing, and that's why the units are a little bit smaller than you would see in some other places, more 1- and 2-bedroom mixes for just
Does
people.
that actually meet the legal definition of workforce housing, though? Be careful about using that
I know,
term.
exactly, yeah. So that's a good question, and I can't tell you, I guarantee you that I understand what the legal definition is here.
Depends on the median income of the county, doesn't it?
It does, yes. It takes into account the county, and you have to go through a
Got some people that
calculation.
throw it off, skew it out of proportion, so.
Yeah, it's a hard calculation, but yes, that's the intent, is to be more workforce living, maybe not. I don't know that it meets the exact definition.
Probably less than a lot of them down there.
Absolutely, on the south end, yes.
Scott, I have a question. Do you calculate the absorption rate of apartments? It's totally off the subject, but we've got so many apartments coming up here. How do they plan
I don't calculate the absorption rate because I don't know how to, but I can tell you that all the people that we talk to, and we talk to a lot of people that want to do apartments or, multifamily things, and they're still filling up as quickly as they're built. It's quite amazing. And it's really, Walton County is real hard to do apartments in because of the density limitations. And you kind of have to get to a certain number a lot of times to make it work financially. And that's hard to do in Walton County. And so even though you think you have a lot of them, Walton County does not. I can tell you they do not have that many apartment complexes. You've just seen a lot of them
All being
recently.
built at once.
Yeah, you've just seen a lot of them recently, but the numbers are really not high. And I think this is just my opinion, but I think you probably need more of them, just, knowing the area, knowing the people that want to live here.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, we'll open it up for public comments. Ivan Harstved.
Harstved, Harstved. I did have a meeting with one of his cohorts and I guess one of the owners today. I thought it was a pretty good meeting. And as he said, we came to agreement, but I want to get it on record. And I think he probably did put it on record. There's kind of a question about where my fence is and where their survey is. And we've already moved our fence once to where the previous owner said the survey was. But I met with the owners and with the engineer, and they agreed that they will remedy that for me. I want that on record, that they agreed that they would remedy that for me. The other, I do have a question for you. That park, that's not just for the apartments, that's for the community?
It can be open to the community.
All right, one thing I did discuss with Jamie, with my property, I think this actually goes further. This isn't going to West County.
It is, that is your easement.
One of my concerns is all the use in this apartment building, and if you're going to open it up to the community, is there any way we can get a fence, something?
Like a privacy fence?
Yeah, inquiring minds from getting on my property and getting in my tool. I was a teenager once, and
Sure.
back when I used to explore back here, there wasn't no trouble for me to get in. But these kids, over my age, but they get to explore and get in our property. I just wonder, is there some way we
Scott, are there plans to fence that or anything?
Yeah, I think the intention is to fence it, and to provide some additional landscaping and a landscape buffer to keep people out of there. But yeah, I don't think that's a problem at all. I think that's, the intent is actually to fence that area.
Okay.
And then we absolutely go on the record and agree that they will remedy any issue with the fence. So if we put up a fence, we won't take his fence down. So
Yeah.
we'll make sure that
Is
they
what
agree.
kind of fence do you have over there?
It's barbed wire.
Okay.
And the fence originally was there from 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And a previous owner, I think his name was Ricky Smith, he bought this pen, and he came to my dad and he said, "Hey, your fence is on my property." But my dad moved it to where the survey said it should be. So we moved our fence. So now, this point right here, we keep inside the fence again. And I think what they did is they just used the previous pin before we moved the fence and said, "Oh, this pin is supposed to be 8 feet off."
There's about 4 property corners that are all in close proximity to one another, so it's been run around a few times, but yeah.
If the owner will do what they said they'll do, I don't want to hold up their development. I don't have a problem with the development. I do have a little bit of a concern with youthful use.
Nothing, the fencing won't help, won't correct, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that's true.
And the owner and I today agreed we'd be good neighbors.
Yeah, and the owner has no problem stipulating to those requests, and they will absolutely make sure that even if it needs to be a corrected deed at some point, they'll fix the fence issue and make sure that that is blocked off from any kind of access getting through there.
Thank you, sir. All right.
Would we need to make that a condition of any approval, or just because it's in the minutes, is that good enough, or?
Suggestion, I would suggest you do. I mean, I always like to have those in there, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We will close public comments. And, Board, is there any questions?
I have none.
All right. Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that it conditional upon the agreement for the owners to work out the fence issue and property line there.
Was there another condition that we were talking about earlier? I can't remember now. It seemed like there was some, maybe this is the same one.
Well, there were some county things that they had to do. They had to change the size of some culverts, and there had been a question about who was going to maintain the park, but I think those are things that were going to be worked out with the planning commission, the county.
That part of the
They were
conditions in the staff.
They were in the report, so.
Chair, I was told just asked to leave those in or reminder, but there's no comments remaining.
Okay.
They just wanted that to stay in the record.
Yeah, they
Okay.
did address those.
Okay.
So your motion is,
To approve based on with the condition of the owner's agreement with Mr. Harstvet. So that'll actually be Mr. Harstvet in the in the motion.
Well, what I'm saying is I don't want to hold up.
No, no, no.
No.
That's just in the motion.
It's going ahead.
Yes.
Yes.
I didn't want to mess y'all up. No. Because we had a good meeting today and
That's just saying that'll, if it's approved by the board, that's a condition of the approval, that they honor y'all's agreement that y'all had today.
All right. We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye. Thank you.
I assume that was an aye, so.
I was.
All right, it's, motion passes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Had a long meeting, but thank you very much for your attention, and that's all we have.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right,
We're
thank you, Matt.
adjourned.
We didn't
Goodbye.
take breaks.